September 19, 1944, Arracourt, Lorraine, France. Morning fog drifted thick over the rolling hills as Captain Jimmy Leech of the 37th Tank Battalion peered through his Sherman's narrow vision slit. His hand trembled slightly as he wrote in his field journal. "These intelligence reports can't be right," he thought. "No tank could be that advanced and still fall in such numbers." Through the swirling mist, he'd just seen something that defied everything American tankers had been told about German armor superiority. Brand new Panther tanks, fresh from German factories, their deadly 75mm guns able to pierce Sherman armor from over a mile away, lay burning across the French countryside. 11 destroyed in a single morning fight. The crews of Combat Command A had just done what the manual said was impossible, defeating technologically superior German tanks using tactics, teamwork, and terrain. What the American tankers didn't yet realize was that they had just proven one of World War II's greatest lessons. Victory didn't belong to the tank with the thickest armor or biggest gun. It belonged to the nation that could train its crews, maintain reliable vehicles, fight as a coordinated force, and replace its losses faster than the enemy. The math of Allied victory wasn't measured in gun size or armor thickness, but in production strength, tactical adaptability, training, and logistics, all of which steadily tore apart the myth of German technical superiority. That myth began in September 1942 when the Tiger tank made its debut near Leningrad. German propaganda turned the Tiger into a battlefield legend, and Allied intelligence backed up the fear. The WWII, armed with a powerful 88mm gun, adapted from Germany's famous anti-aircraft weapon, was unlike anything the Allies had seen. Its 100mm frontal armor, thick 120mm mantelet, and 80mm sides made it nearly invincible. No Allied tank in service could penetrate it under normal conditions. The Tiger, on the other hand, could destroy Allied tanks from more than 2,000 meters away, distances at which Allied crews could barely even spot their targets. The psychological shock was devastating. In early 1943, British crews in Tunisia reported their Churchill tank shells bouncing harmlessly off Tiger armor from just 50 meters. American crews arriving soon after found their Shermans, once effective against earlier German models, helpless against the Tiger's power. Stories spread quickly through Allied ranks, tales of single Tigers wiping out entire squadrons and shrugging off direct hits. Each retelling, whether true or exaggerated, only deepened the Tiger's reputation. Among those studying these reports was Lieutenant Colonel Creighton Abrams, commander of the 37th Tank Battalion, 4th Armored Division. Unlike many who panicked over the Tiger's strength, Abrams stayed analytical. He gathered every piece of intelligence, interviewed tankers who'd survived encounters, and studied the terrain of France, where he knew his men would one day fight. In March 1944, he wrote in his journal, now preserved at the Patton Museum, "The German Tiger is a formidable weapon system, no doubt. But it's just that, a system, not a miracle. It has limits. Its weight hurts mobility. Its fuel use limits range. Its complexity makes it unreliable. Most of all, German tactics with these tanks can be countered by skilled crews using proper strategy. We must stop thinking of tank battles as duels and start thinking systematically. The tank that arrives fights effectively as part of a team, and keeps running through the campaign is worth more than the heavy monster that breaks down before the fight." Abrams' insight would soon prove true, but before American tankers could prove it on the battlefield, they had to survive the brutal reality of France. June 6, 1944, D-Day. The Allied invasion of France began with the largest amphibious landing in history. Among the thousands of vehicles rolling onto Normandy's beaches were hundreds of Sherman tanks, the armored spearhead of American forces. The M4 Sherman, first produced in 1942, became the backbone of Allied armor. Within 2 years, 11 U.S. factories were producing them at unmatched speed. The Chrysler Detroit arsenal alone built nearly 18,000. By the end of the war, 49,234 Shermans had rolled off American lines. Germany, by contrast, built the Tiger like a luxury watch, precise, powerful, but slow and costly. Each tank took around 300,000 man-hours to complete and cost twice as much as a Panzer IV. Between 1942 and 1944, only 1,347 Tiger tanks were made. The Tiger II, even more complex, saw just 492 built before the war ended. Combined, Fewer than 2,900 Tigers ever rolled out. Against tens of thousands of Allied tanks, the math was brutal. But numbers alone didn't guarantee victory, as U.S. tankers learned in the deadly hedgerows of Normandy. The bocage, a maze of small fields surrounded by earthen banks and thick hedges, became a nightmare for Allied armor. German defenders turned it into a killing field, hiding anti-tank guns behind hedges and stalking Shermans with Panzerfaust rockets. The German Panther, with its powerful 75mm gun and sloped armor, was nearly as dangerous as the Tiger. The Sherman's 75mm guns couldn't pierce a Panther's front armor. Even up close, and their own thin armor offered little protection. Early models caught fire easily when hit, earning them the grim nickname Ronsons, after the lighter brand that lit every time. The 3rd Armored Division learned this the hard way. In just 5 weeks, it lost 128 Shermans destroyed and 273 damaged. Nearly 500 men were killed, almost 2,000 wounded, and hundreds more went missing. Lieutenant Belton Cooper, the division's maintenance officer, saw the aftermath daily. "I saw tanks hit by 88mm shells just explode," he wrote. "The crew had no chance. I saw tanks burning with men still inside. These weren't numbers, they were friends. Men who climbed into their tanks each morning knowing they might not live to climb out." German confidence bordered on arrogance. Colonel Hans von Luck, commanding a Panzer Grenadier regiment in Normandy, recalled, "We saw the Sherman as easy prey. It was fast and agile, but no match for our Panthers and Tigers. Our guns could destroy them before they could even aim properly." But the Americans were adapting. The initial shock gave way to learning. Sherman crews stopped charging head-on and started using their superior speed to flank German tanks. They coordinated more closely with infantry and artillery, using smoke and suppressive fire to close the distance. They learned how to use terrain to their advantage. Most importantly, they began to think like teams, like not lone duelists. Dozens of Shermans working together could outmaneuver and overwhelm even the most powerful German tanks. The 2nd Armored Division developed a new set of tactics they called swarming. 3 or 4 Sherman tanks would attack a single German tank from multiple directions at once. While the German crew focused on one Sherman, the others would move to strike its weaker side or rear armor. During the breakout from Normandy in late July, these tactics began to pay off. German tanks that had seemed unstoppable just weeks earlier were being destroyed through teamwork and coordination. Engineers also made key mechanical improvements to the Sherman. They welded extra armor plates over vulnerable areas and introduced wet ammunition storage, water-filled jackets around the ammo racks that drastically reduced the chance of fire when the tank was hit. This single upgrade cut the rate of catastrophic fires from 60% to 15%. Crews in the field also improvised, welding steel tusks made from captured German beach obstacles onto their tanks. These hedgerow cutters let Shermans break through the thick French hedges instead of trying to climb over them. The most significant upgrade came with the 76mm M1 gun, which replaced the Sherman's original 75mm. The new gun fired a heavier, faster shell that could penetrate a Panther's front armor at around 600 meters and its sides at 1,000 meters. It still wasn't as powerful as the German guns, but it gave Sherman crews a real fighting chance. The British went further, fitting their excellent 17-pounder anti-tank gun into modified Shermans, creating the Sherman Firefly. The 17-pounder's high-velocity rounds could punch through 210mm of armor at 500 meters, enough to kill even a Tiger II head-on. Over 2,000 Fireflies were built for British and Canadian units. German crews quickly learned to spot and target Fireflies first, recognizing their longer barrels. British tankers adapted, disguising the barrels to look like standard Shermans by painting black rings near the muzzle. As summer turned to fall in 1944, the nature of the campaign changed completely. After the Allied breakout from Normandy and the destruction of German forces in the Falaise Pocket, American armored divisions surged east, covering hundreds of miles in weeks. That rapid advance exposed one of Germany's biggest weaknesses: fuel. German heavy tanks were monsters in firepower, but guzzled fuel at unsustainable rates. The Tiger I could burn through 125 gallons in under 60 miles of cross-country movement. The Tiger II, weighing nearly 70 tons, did even worse. Allied air superiority made the problem catastrophic. Fighter bombers relentlessly hunted supply convoys, bombed fuel depots, and shredded rail lines. By September 1944, Many German armored units were stranded simply because they had no fuel left. Technical Sergeant James Mitchell, a recovery specialist with the 1st Armored Division, kept precise notes on the wrecks he examined. In September and October 1944, my team processed 67 German armored vehicles, he wrote. Only 18 had battle damage. The other 49 were abandoned, most due to fuel exhaustion, a few from mechanical breakdowns. His report showed that 31 had run out of fuel, 12 suffered transmission failures, and 6 had track damage. Every one of those tanks could have been repaired if German logistics had the capacity. In contrast, U.S. forces recovered and repaired over 200 Shermans in the same period, returning them to battle in just a few days. The difference came down to design and logistics. The Sherman was built for reliability and ease of maintenance. Its Ford GA V8 engine was simple and durable, and the whole power pack could be swapped out in under 2 hours. Replacement engines and parts were always available. The Tiger, on the other hand, was an engineer's nightmare. Its Maybach HL230 engine was powerful but temperamental, and the manual even warned crews not to exceed 2,600 RPM to avoid damage. The Tiger's overlapping road wheels clogged with mud and ice, sometimes freezing solid. Replacing a single inner wheel meant removing several others first, a nightmare in field conditions. And spare parts were always short. German factories, crippled by Allied bombing and resource shortages, simply couldn't keep up. Tigers often sat for weeks immobilized and awaiting parts that never arrived. American logistics had no such problem. Spare parts flowed constantly to forward depots. Maintenance crews worked around the clock to keep Shermans operational, allowing American armor to fight continuously while German tanks sat idle. These advantages were about to become crucial at Arracourt, where Combat Command A of the 4th Armored Division would prove that reliable tanks, skilled crews, and strong support could beat a technically superior enemy. The 4th Armored Division was among the best-trained American armored forces in Europe. Activated in 1941, it spent 3 years in intensive stateside training before deploying to France. Tank crews practiced live-fire gunnery until they could hit moving targets at range, and studied German tactics until they could predict their moves. By the time they landed, they were among the most battle-ready crews in the Allied Army. Their commander, Major General John Wood, emphasized aggressive tactics and trusted his officers with independent decision-making. He pushed for close coordination between tanks, infantry, artillery, engineers, and air support, training that would prove vital in the days ahead. By mid-September 1944, the division had advanced deep into eastern France under Patton's 3rd Army. Combat Command A, led by Colonel Bruce Clark, crossed the Moselle River and established positions near Arracourt. Clark commanded about 3,000 men and 75 Sherman tanks. German intelligence quickly recognized the threat. Hitler personally ordered General Hasso von Manteuffel's 5th Panzer Army to counterattack and destroy Clark's bridgehead. Manteufel gathered a powerful force: the 11th Panzer Division, the 111th Panzer Brigade, and the 113th Panzer Brigade, a total of 262 armored vehicles, including 107 Panthers, 75 Panzer IVs, and 80 assault guns. German commanders expected an easy victory. They outnumbered the Americans and believed their tanks were far superior. But Clark had prepared carefully. His intelligence officers mapped the likely German attack routes and identified strong defensive terrain. Artillery had pre-registered firing zones, and air support procedures were set up for rapid response. Tank commanders scouted their positions personally, choosing spots with maximum cover and clear firing lines. On the foggy morning of September 19th, visibility was less than 100 meters. At 8 a.m., the 113th Panzer Brigade advanced from the east and south, expecting light resistance. Instead, they ran into a layered defense. American infantry outposts opened fire first, slowing the attack and forcing the Germans to bunch up. As Panthers pushed forward, they rolled into ambushes prepared by American M18 Hellcat tank destroyers, which fired through the fog from hidden positions. Several Panthers went up in flames before the rest realized what was happening. Those that survived drove deeper, straight into pre-registered American artillery zones. The shelling didn't destroy many tanks directly, but it shattered their coordination, separated them from infantry support, and broke their momentum. The stage was set for one of the most remarkable American tank victories of the war. Captain Jimmy Leech's B Company, 37th Tank Battalion, waited in well-chosen positions along a low ridge. His 3 platoons were set to support each other while keeping clear withdrawal routes. Engines idled as crews scanned the swirling fog. Around 9:30 a.m., shapes emerged, German Panthers less than 400 meters away. Leech's gunner, Staff Sergeant Thomas Riley, locked onto the lead tank and fired. The 75mm armor-piercing shell hit just below the turret ring, stopping the Panther cold as smoke poured from its engine deck. Other Shermans from B Company opened up instantly. In seconds, 5 Panthers were hit, 3 destroyed, 2 crippled. The remaining German tanks tried to fire back, but their long-range guns were useless in the fog. American crews, with faster turret movement and better visibility from their cupolas, could spot and shoot faster. The fight turned close quarters where American training, coordination, and teamwork outweighed German armor and firepower. U.S. tank commanders coordinated volleys, focusing several tanks on single targets. German tanks, advancing blindly and scattered by terrain, fought alone and were picked off one by one. In less than half an hour, 11 German tanks were destroyed or disabled. B Company lost just 1 Sherman, damaged but repairable. The effect on morale was huge. American crews who'd been told it took 5 Shermans to beat 1 German tank had just destroyed 11 Panthers with barely a scratch. The myth of German invincibility was shattered. German crews were stunned. Their new Panthers, expected to dominate, had been wiped out. Over the next 11 days, repeated German attacks followed the same disastrous pattern: poor reconnaissance, predictable advances, and devastating losses. American coordination between tanks, artillery, infantry, and air support proved overwhelming. On September 20th, clear skies brought in American fighter bombers. P-47 Thunderbolts struck German columns with rockets, bombs, and strafing runs. Forward air controllers radioed coordinates straight to circling planes. Bombs were on target within 20 minutes. German tanks caught in open ground were shredded. That same day, artillery spotter Major Charles Carpenter took to the skies in his small Piper L4 Cub, armed with 6 bazookas. Spotting advancing Panthers near Arracourt, he dove in at treetop level, firing rockets at their engine decks. He made several passes under fire, forcing multiple tanks to retreat. His daring earned him the nickname Bazooka Charlie. By September 25th, German forces had achieved nothing but destruction. The 113th Panzer Brigade began with 88 Panthers. Only 7 remained operational. Out of 262 armored vehicles committed, 200 were destroyed or abandoned. American losses totaled just 25 Shermans and 7 tank destroyers, an 8-to-1 kill ratio. The human toll on the Germans was crushing: over 700 dead and 300 wounded. Entire crews were wiped out. Many were young, barely trained replacements. Veterans who might have made a difference were already gone. American casualties were minimal: 6 killed, 13 wounded. Quick medical evacuation and field hospitals saved many lives. After the battle, recovery crews found dozens of abandoned German tanks with no combat damage, left behind for lack of fuel or mechanical breakdowns. German recovery units were crippled by fuel shortages and destroyed equipment. The Americans, meanwhile, ran a flawless repair system. Each armored division had a maintenance battalion with recovery vehicles, mobile workshops, and parts on hand 24/7. Lieutenant Colonel William Duncan of the 4th Armored Division tracked results. In September 1944, his unit recovered 127 damaged Shermans. 89 were repaired within 3 days, 23 more within a week, and only 15 were beyond repair, an 88% recovery rate. The lessons from Arracourt spread fast. American tank crews learned they could win through tactics and teamwork. The fear of German supertanks faded. Commanders realized that superior training, logistics, and coordination beat thicker armor any day. General George Patton saw it clearly. In a letter to Eisenhower on September 30th, he wrote, "The affair at Arracourt proves that American armor, properly handled, is superior to German armor in every way that counts." The 4th Armored Division carried those lessons forward, spearheading Patton's drive across France and into Germany, advancing over 1,200 miles from Normandy to Czechoslovakia. Their success came from the principles shown at Arracourt: bold leadership, strong training, tactical flexibility, teamwork, and unmatched logistics. But Germany wasn't finished. In December 1944, Hitler launched one last desperate offensive through the Ardennes forest, the Battle of the Bulge. It was meant to split Allied forces and capture Antwerp. Beginning December 16th, German armies attacked through snow, fog, and bitter cold, catching U.S. troops off guard. Tiger and King Tiger tanks led the way, breaking through thin American lines. For a few days, it looked like another 1940. But the German army of 1944 wasn't the same as in 1940. Years of losses had drained its best troops and equipment. The panzer divisions were understrength, undertrained, and running on fumes, literally. Their entire plan depended on capturing American fuel depots, and when that failed, their advance stalled. The U.S. response was fast and decisive. Within 24 hours, commanders understood the threat. Patton's Third Army pivoted 90 degrees north, marching over 100 miles in freezing conditions to strike the German flank. 3 full divisions, 133,000 vehicles moved in under 48 hours. No other army on Earth could have done that. And through it all, the Sherman tank proved its worth. Reliable, adaptable, and ready for whatever came next. Its easy maintenance meant that even when Shermans broke down, they were quickly repaired and back in action. Most importantly, American logistics ensured every tank had fuel, ammunition, and spare parts when it reached the front. German tanks, on the other hand, were running dry, short on fuel, ammo, and replacement parts. When the skies finally cleared on December 23rd, American air power entered the fight with devastating effect. Hundreds of fighter bombers attacked German convoys, destroying tanks, trucks, and artillery. Pilots reported long lines of abandoned vehicles clogging the roads, perfect targets for airstrikes. In a single day, British Typhoon fighter bombers were credited with destroying 175 German tanks. By early January 1945, the German offensive had been stopped and turned back. American armored divisions counterattacked, driving the Germans out of the Ardennes. The Battle of the Bulge cost Germany dearly. 100,000 casualties, 800 tanks destroyed or abandoned, and 1,000 aircraft lost. These were the last reserves Germany could ever field. The Sherman's role in breaking the Ardennes offensive proved the wisdom behind its design. Its mobility allowed it to redeploy quickly. Its reliability kept it running under the toughest conditions. Its simple maintenance meant it could stay in the fight day after day. Its massive production meant replacements were always available. And when used in coordination with infantry, artillery, and air power, it became far more deadly than its specifications suggested. As the Allies crossed the Rhine in March 1945 and pushed into Germany, the feared Tigers had all but vanished. Fuel shortages left most stranded. Those that could still move had no ammunition. Spare parts were gone and trained crews were dead or captured. Germany's once vaunted technical edge had collapsed under the sheer weight of Allied organization and logistics. By war's end, the numbers told the story. American, British, and Canadian forces had deployed nearly 60,000 tanks in Europe, the majority of them Shermans. Against this, Germany fielded about 6,600 Panthers and Tigers combined. The imbalance was enormous and intentional. Allied planners knew German tanks were technically superior, but they chose to win through numbers, logistics, and coordination. That strategy worked perfectly. On May 8, 1945, Germany surrendered unconditionally. The debate between Sherman and Tiger was over. The Tiger, though technically superior, could not change the outcome. The Sherman, adequate, reliable, and available in massive numbers, had helped secure victory. The reason was simple. Wars aren't won by the best weapons. They're won by the best systems that use good enough weapons effectively. The real lesson of the Sherman's success shaped military thinking for generations. Reliability, maintainability, producibility, and integration matter more than raw performance. These principles live on in modern tanks like the M1 Abrams. It isn't the heaviest or most powerful tank in the world, but it's dependable, easy to maintain, and built for large-scale production and combined arms warfare, just like the Sherman. The Sherman story didn't end with World War II. It served through the Korean War, where it fought North Korean and Chinese armor effectively. In Israel, upgraded Shermans fought in multiple wars up to 1973. Around the world, Shermans remained in service well into the 1980s. A remarkable lifespan for a tank first built in 1941. The story of how Germany's unstoppable Tigers fell to America's humble Shermans isn't just about tanks. It's about how nations prepare for war, how industry shapes outcomes, how training and organization multiply effectiveness, and how broad, systematic strength defeats narrow technical brilliance. The Sherman, often dismissed as mediocre, proved more than adequate. It arrived at the fight, kept fighting, and was supported by a system that made sure it never ran dry. It was crewed by soldiers who learned how to use it as part of a greater whole. These unglamorous qualities, reliability, production, and teamwork, mattered far more than thick armor or a bigger gun. The Tiger didn't fail because it was a bad tank. It failed because even the best machine can't survive without the system to sustain it. The Tiger represented peak engineering. The Sherman represented a winning strategy. In the end, the Sherman defeated the Tiger because it was part of a complete, functioning system, and the Tiger wasn't. That simple truth defined the outcome of armored warfare in World War II and still guides military thinking today. The message written across Europe's battlefields remains timeless. Good equipment used effectively within a great system will always defeat great equipment used within a weak one. The Sherman proved it. The Tiger confirmed it. And together they taught the modern world how wars are truly won.